we go. Got the little Zoom lady. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I am Jessie Perkins. I'm the Executive Director of the Bethel Area Chamber of Commerce, and I'll be moderating today's January 2022 edition of the Lunchbox Zoom series with the Mahoosic Sustainable Tourism Committee. So please, if you're not speaking, make sure you're on mute so we don't pick up your background noise. And as you just saw, this session is being recorded, and Isabella and I are negotiating where to put that on YouTube. Past episodes have been uploaded to the Chamber's YouTube page. So feel free to catch up at any time. We're now in the depth of winter, but that doesn't slow folks down around here, as we know. I'd like to publicly cheer on some members of the committee to permanently conserve Buck Sledge and Woodstock, who have made some tremendous fundraising efforts lately. And I know for a fact that they have a new Mahoosic Way sign posted there. So good luck to all those working on preserving that iconic location. And some other Mahoosic Way related news. You may have seen the news in December that the Mahoosic Land Trust was able to conserve more than 12,000 acres of land owned by Mary McFadden and Larry Stifler, which is a stunning accomplishment with implications all the way to Portland, because it's part of an effort to conserve land to protect the watershed that feeds that city's drinking water. So congratulations and good luck to all those involved in those two projects. Yay. Those are huge. That's great. One of the benefits of all these meetings is we get to know each other and work together, and great things come of that. And I think those are two excellent examples. So moving on to today's topic is visitor experience. So the world is still going through its ups and downs, as we know, but our area continues to attract visitors at a very good clip. Today's speakers are here to share their efforts to develop new kinds of experiences that travelers are looking for, and how they are creating experiences authentic to this particular place. Our first speaker will be Maggie Quirky, the store manager of the Maine Mineral and Gem Museum, who was a former board member of the chamber, but also has been involved in the museum from all the way through the process. So we're very pleased to have her here today, and she'll share with you some surprising statistics about how many people have come to visit. And then we'll follow Maggie with Karen Bolduc, the co-owner of Colburn Spoon Sanctuary, who will share an update on the progress of this center she's working on in partnership with her husband, the food-focused backcountry eco-glamping immersion experience on 500 acres right on the backside of Mount Abram. Sounds very cool. After that, we'll have an open discussion from 12:30 to 12:45. And yeah, at that point, we'll be able to share some questions or thoughts with our speakers, or open it up a little bit and just kind of reconnect here in the new year. So, okay, I'll stop talking and I will hand it over to Maggie Quirky.
Hey, thanks for having me. So we, Jessie mentioned visitors, and yes, they are visiting here for sure. Here at the museum, we welcomed just over 14,000 people through our doors from April to December of last year. Unfortunately, the beginning of the year, our exhibits were closed due to an internal flood that we had here in late last year. So that was unfortunate, but we still had, like I said, over 14,000 people. The visitor experience here is key. It's sort of central to the museum's mission. And as far as what they experience here, it is all about place. It is all about our place, not only here locally in the state of Maine, but also, you know, in our solar system. As you travel through our exhibits, you learn all about Maine's mining history, which goes all the way back to the early 1800s. You get immersed in the geology, mining history, and then the lapidary arts. What happens to these things after they're mined? Why did they mine? What did they mine? And then, of course, last but certainly not least, is the Meteorite Collection that we house here. That is the founder, Larry Stifler's personal meteorite collection. It's one of the most preeminent meteorite collections in the world. Of course, we can't not mention the largest piece of the moon and the largest piece of Mars that we house here. They're on display all year round. So when we talk about visitor experience, it's not just the mineral people, the meteorite collectors. It's all about people who just walk in the door, interactive exhibits for kids to keep them engaged.
All right, thanks.
And really having them leave with a sense of, wow, I can't believe I just left this sort of museum, this world-class museum that I just happened upon in a small town in Maine. And I didn't even have to go, I don't have to go to Washington, D.C. anymore, or the American Museum of Natural History. We get so many comments that say, this is better than anything the Smithsonian has or the American Museum of Natural History. And that's what it's all about, is creating this big city feel in this beautiful Bethel town village. And it's just been so much fun to create this immersive, interactive, but fun experience. And it's been really fun to listen to those 14,000 people come down and just go, wow, I can't believe that this is here in Bethel. So that's what it's all about. It's about place. It's about the importance of place, both Maine and in our solar system. So that's that. I mean, you really need to come and see it and experience it. It's quite an amazing thing that we've done. It's took 7 years of really hard planning, and then the unfortunate flood that we had, but it's all back open and ready for people to come visit. I think that's all I have to say. Yeah.
Thank you, Maggie.
Maggie, can I ask a quick question?
Of course.
Jesse?
Yeah, go ahead.
Just to hear a little bit more about your sense of where people are coming from. Like, are you drawing, and I'm sure you're getting a lot of local and state folks. I'm just kind of curious, where your sense is that people are coming from, and and how you all are thinking about targeting and kind of reaching out with your marketing.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. Obviously, during the ski season, they come from closer, New England, New Jersey, New York. There are phases in the summer where we have distinct states. There'll be a week where we get 100 people from Tennessee, or 100 people from Ohio or California. It's this very strange, weird, I don't even know what to call it. But we get people from everywhere. We get, the international visitors as well. We get, obviously most visitors are from Massachusetts, New England, Connecticut. When we first opened, we had a gentleman drive up from Cape Cod for the day. It was like, you realize, that's a very long drive, but for the most part, it's New England, with the exception. And then in the summer, it's everywhere. They come from everywhere. We have, a big event coming up in October, which I can elaborate on more if people would like, that we're going to start to do some PR for nationwide. But we're going to definitely try to hit the I-95 corridor as far as visitors, but also trying to branch out national and hopefully international, COVID dependent. So, but yeah, they come from everywhere.
Can I ask you also, one of the big components, again, that folks might not be as aware of is you guys really have the capability to do some amazing research there. And I know that draws in a whole other very specific kind of crowd. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Sure. So in our basement, which sounds awful, in the laboratory, we have one of the world's preeminent mineralogy, petrology research groups called MP Squared. And they have been researching minerals and all sorts in geology for, I think, 30 to 35 years. They have described 25 or 6 new minerals in the world. We have very fancy equipment that does things that I can't even process. I mean, it's mind blowing what they do. So we have a lot of researchers, colleges, students who come to them to do doctorate theses, research, mapping, things like that. It's quite amazing what they do. So we're very lucky to have them. It's not a resource that a lot of museums have. Especially the describing new minerals thing is very, very cool. It usually takes 2 to 3 years to describe a new mineral. There's a whole process they got to go through, but not many museums have that research capability right in their basement. So we're very lucky.
Can I ask a question?
Sure. And then we'll go to Marcel and Emily. I saw your hand there too. Go ahead, Donna.
Maggie, what's the interactive nature of the experience? You said that, you mentioned that it was interactive. Can you explain that?
Sure. So obviously wall space is limited in any building, and there's so much of a story that we want to tell. You know, we don't just have minerals on shelves with a label. We want to tell the story behind the minerals, behind the finds. So we really utilize tablets, iPads, interactive TV screens to house all of the content. So when you come in, for instance, we have a 2-story diorama of a mine. So you've got the below ground and you've got the upper ground and you've got above ground. And in front of those, you have 3 big tablets that house a program that holds all of the content for that exhibit. So you can tap through all of the layers that our assistant curator has put together and learn about geology, groundwater, soil, minerals, mining. How do they find these things? So there's a lot of layers, and luckily tablets and TV screens are so advanced that, you know, in the space of, you know, a notebook, you have hours of content that teachers can just come in and put their students in front of and say, here you go, flip through this, and it teaches them all about that.
Thanks, Maggie. Marcel or Emily, did you want
Sure.
to?
I wanted to follow up to what Maggie said about seeing clusters of visitors from the same area. This is an interesting issue. Emily and I were visiting Hawaii one year, and we started bumping into couple after couple after couple that were from the Czech Republic. They were not on a tour together. They just, for some reason, there was all of a sudden this mass of people coming from one area. So that would be an interesting topic for the chamber or others to try to figure out. Is it because there's a particular article that's being placed in a local paper in Nashville, or but this is not, apparently it seems to be something that's fairly common. It
Yes.
takes place.
You know what? It's funny you say that, because sometimes we get waves of people that like, why are we seeing all the Texans this week? You know,
Yeah.
we have our visitor center here too. And then, you know, in the pre-COVID world, certainly like all of a sudden we'd have several people from Israel or Germany. And maybe Donna knows where they're placing ads internationally or going to certain travel shows or things like that. But yeah, I don't know. It's a confirmation bias, but it's certainly very interesting.
I know at one point, I think there was an article, I don't know if it was on the museum or if it was on Bethel in general in Germany. That was years ago. And then all of a sudden we did get, it was like, okay, that actually worked. But as far as it's like Ohio Day or Ohio, it's fascinating. It's really, really fascinating.
It does have a lot to do with the marketing and the public relations.
Yeah, Donna's always pulling the strings.
It's hard for us to keep track of it.
Maybe we should be more proactive in asking questions of these folks to figure out what is the connection. And they'll tell us how they decided to come.
I always used to tell people, ask the question, how did you happen to hear about us? And you get a huge amount of information.
We try, but you know, those days where you have 200 to 300 people in through the door, it gets tough. We do a lot of running in the summer.
No doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is why every time someone accuses us of just being a winter town, I say, "Mm-mm." So yeah, that's my own personal.
Yep.
crusade. Well, thank you, Maggie. I think that's, I know we could talk all day, and we'll certainly open up for more questions after about 12:30 or so. But I did want to make sure that we shine a light on Karen, who again is building something totally different and totally new, an eco-friendly community on the back of Mount Abram. And again, I hate to put words in people's mouths, so I'll just turn it over to Karen. Karen, tell us about what you're up to and what your vision is.
Sure. So thank you for having me. I'm happy to tell you guys a little bit about it. Thanks to anyone who's tuning in and listening. And so yeah, my name's Karen Bolduc. I'm a Greenwood resident. Our space is on the kind of backside of Mount Abram, and then 2 other mountain peaks behind that. We've got a 500-acre parcel here where my husband John and I are developing this project called the Colburn Spoon Sanctuary. So yes, we're kind of, if we have to describe it in a nutshell, we call it an Epicurean eco glamping accommodation. But essentially what we're talking about is just short-term stays, right? It's an outdoor hospitality business where people come on vacation to stay for 4 days or more and just experience what nature in the mountains has to offer up here. And we call it Epicurean because it's very food focused. So meal kits come with the stay where you're getting everything that is homegrown in Maine, and some of it you'll even forage yourself on the mountains while you're here. So just a quick update on where we're at in that project. We moved here about 2 years ago, and with intentions of hopefully getting this started within a year. A lot of things happened after we came here. John sustained a pretty big injury. The pandemic happened. But the good news is that we're finally getting to a great place now where we're in the process of actively securing a roughly $1.7 million loan to build out our first 5 units, a welcome center, 5 really unique and fun amenities, and some edible foraging trails, and of course the meal kit program. So the timeline right now is that we'll be building the rest of our roads. We've got about 3/4 of a mile built right now to our owner's cabin here. And we'll be building about another mile of roads in the spring, and then construction should start this summer. So that's very exciting for us to finally be at the moment of actualization of something that has been very, very well thought out for a long time. So the reason we're in the Bethel area is, when we started this journey, we originally developed some criteria, right? We had a vision of what we wanted. And we said, what do we need? What are the high notes that we want to hit in any property that we pick? So we knew we wanted something more than 100 acres. We wanted good trees for tree houses. We wanted good topography with good views, preferably a water feature of some sort was pretty critical to us. But at the time, we wanted something within about half an hour of our farm in Auburn. And then importantly, it had to have, whatever site we chose had to have the magic, right? That's kind of self-explanatory. It's something you feel when you're there. It feels magical. And we bushwhacked, snowmobile, trudged our way through about 50 different properties throughout southern Maine before we found this parcel here. And so we hadn't really planned to leave Auburn, but this place had everything that we wanted: peaks and ponds and wild edibles, and definitely had the magic. And then on top of that, it was directly abutting a family ski resort, Mount Abram, which was that was just gravy that we hadn't even planned on, and certainly synergistic. So even though Greenwood was beyond our radius, it really pulled us in, and we sold our farm and we moved here. I just want to take 1 second to also be grateful for the Mahoosuc Way initiative. I just think that, it's so relevant. I mean, whatever region you're in, whatever your thing is in that region, I think it really needs to be managed thoughtfully, because things don't manage themselves. And so when you live in a place like the greater Bethel area that has this really just amazing constellation of natural resources and recreational resources, the thing that you need to manage is tourism. People want to come see it. And without a body behind it to sort of be really intentional about that process, like I said, it doesn't manage itself. So I'm grateful for the Mahoosic Way and the Sustainable Tourism Plan and everything that the community brought together there. I think it's smart. So ensuring a successful visitor experience. I mean, obviously take everything I say with a grain of salt, because I don't have a successful business that's up and running yet. We're still developing it, but I will tell you what we have been planning and what has made sense to us and how we've modeled it. So, I mean, if you kind of think about, the broad goal, right, of a successful visitor experience, I think it's really just to ensure that the authenticity of the region is successfully translated and experienced by the visitor, right? So that whatever you are promising, that is what they are experiencing when they come, being really clear on that transfer. So I think generally speaking, this is done by just being really clear on knowing who and what your region is in a really nuanced way, not just kind of like the caricature of it that, oh, it's Maine, it's blueberries. Well, there's more to every region than that. And so being really clear on those nuances, and then, also knowing how best to honor that and enjoy it, how best to experience it. And then having the ability to extrapolate that into your experience and communicate that to your guests. So if the way that we have kind of filtered that general process through our lens with our planning here at the Colburn Spoon is really a good kind of place to start, I think, with that process, is to be super thoughtful about your target demographic. So, who's going to be attracted to your model and making sure that they get what they're coming here for. So for us, we're targeting, high earning green consumers, millennials and boomers, couples and families. But importantly, we know that they're athletic, they're curious, they care about sustainability, and they think about a vacation as not like a luxury, but more as just like a necessary part of a healthy lifestyle. So when we get that picture firmly planted in our mind of who it is that we're drawing in, now we know to a certain extent the way we're going to frame our online messaging and our website and things to try and pre-select, right, for that kind of person. You're trying to get the right kind of person who's going to succeed in your experience. So it's our responsibility to make sure that the right person gets here. So to that end, we have a couple of different strategies. So we have actually a lot of different strategies, but to keep it for brevity's sake, I just have a few examples. So one is we have a short alignment quiz that is not required, but is strongly encouraged for anyone who's about to check out with us, which essentially I have a link to that I think that our folks there might be able to pull up for you. But the alignment quiz is essentially just a little, like magazine style quiz that's to help guests ensure that they're coming to the right place, that they're getting to where they want to be. So like, for instance, it's very important that people who really need their butt kissed don't end up here. That's very important. They won't have a successful experience. If that type of person comes here, they're not going to enjoy themselves. They're going to probably leave a bad review. That's bad for us. That's bad for the Bethel area. So we just want to prevent that from happening, right? We're trying to align the right guests. So the quiz is kind of just one way to help shepherd that person here to our experience. So questions like, do you like to cook? If you don't like cooking, you're not going to have a good time here. Do you, how important is it to you to be pampered on your vacation, right? So you guys can scroll through that at your convenience, but that's one of the kind of strategies that we have to try and ensure a successful visitor experience. Another is having some suggested itineraries that are available in people's units when they show up and they get to their treehouse or their cabin. We thought a lot about how to help people make the most of their experience here without giving them these strict time schedules that are sort of oppressive. So to that end, we developed suggested itineraries, which just sort of have big, broad swaths of time. There's another link that I have to some of those. People want to look at that. But on the suggested itineraries, it's just kind of like giving you some ideas of how to make the most of your day here. Things you might not even, you know, amenities you might not even know we have, and resources you might not even know we have. Here's what a really fun day in the summertime could look like. They're sort of seasonally oriented so that you're getting ideas that are relevant for that season, because it's very, very, you know, very based on what's happening in that season, the experiences. So that's another tool we have. And then one last kind of strategy we're using to try and ensure a successful visitor experience is we have a highly choreographed entrance. So when you come here, we're very intentional about ensuring that, for instance, the width and the curvature of the road, because it's about 3/4 of a mile before you get to our welcome center, is actually, it starts wider and straighter and becomes a little bit narrower and becomes more winding, because what we're trying to do is slow people down. That's part of the experience we're promising, is that when you come here, you're going to unplug, you're going to slow down, get all this perspective. If you can drive directly right up to your unit and just stop and get out and like 5 seconds later be in a treehouse, it's a little jolting, right, to try and make that transition. So we're trying to build into the process this slowness and this way of getting to your unit that's slower. So besides the road changing, you actually can't drive up to your unit. The only way that you get to your unit is either by hiking, or for those that don't want to or are unable to hike, we can give you a ride in an ATV or a snowmobile, and potentially down the road, live burros. We're working on donkeys, but not quite there yet. But so that's the, you know, building in these processes to help slow people down and decelerate from warp speed, so to speak, of today's fast-paced digital life. So, we just think of ourselves as, at the end of the day, we're here to be the coach in that process to help the visitor have the experience that they want. It's our duty to ensure that what we're promising is the experience that they have. And so if we promise that you're going to unplug and slow down and have this wonderful cooking and enlightening outdoor recreation experience, then I need to think of my job as essentially a creator of conditions that ensure that that's exactly what happens for you. So that's how we've approached the visitor experience. And I guess time will tell. We have yet to see if our model works, but we'll certainly keep you all posted.
Karen, everything you just said was amazing. Wow. Can you, my first question is, though, the most obvious one is, can you explain the name of your sanctuary?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So the name is just kind of a shout out to a few different things. So it's referring to the process of, it's a class that you can actually take. We offer, we're partnering with a few primitive skills classes here, schools rather, here in Maine, to offer some of these bushcraft classes and things like making a coal burn spoon. So this is where you take a chunk of cedar and you whittle it down, and then in order to blow out the bowl of the spoon, you put a piece of coal in it and you do this kind of process, and it slowly burns out a bowl, and eventually you sand that down and whittle it out, and you get this nice usable handcrafted spoon. And the process takes a couple of hours. It's, you can do it in a morning, but it's a way to, so we felt that particular object was very symbolic and a perfect symbol for what we're doing, right? It's slowing down. It's being in touch with the things that sustain you. It is forming a new relationship with them. And it's a shout out to cooking, right? It's a spoon. So we're trying to make it clear that this is all about cooking and eating and enjoying that sensual experience. So that's where the name comes from.
Great. I also wanted to say, I really appreciate your comments about the Hoosic Way in general, and sort of, the ability to collaborate behind the scenes and try to guide the future of our tourism economy, because I want to throw that back and say it definitely, that type of process is never going to be successful unless we have the businesses who are on board with it and aligned with it. So wanted to say thank you for getting involved with it so early before you're even open. But yeah, I think it'll be amazing to hear from you again in another year and see how it's going, because it sounds like you're really creating something special. So thank you for your
Yeah,
remarks.
thank you.
We have another 10 or 15 minutes or so. So why don't we throw it open to questions, either for Karen or for Maggie? And I see Marcel's hand up here.
Well, first I want to just welcome you and congratulate you on an extraordinary model. I'm just extremely impressed with how you've thought this through. So I'm wondering if your model also includes a promise for people to plug out. So by that, I mean, are you going to also have broadband available so people can plug out but plug in as they wish? Because that seems to be a model for many visitors now, as well as they go into remote places.
Yeah.
I'm asking this question because as some of our other participants today are involved in an effort to get universal broadband to the area. So I'm just wondering if that's a need of yours as well.
Yeah, thank you for that question, Marcel. And it's a great one that we gave a lot of thought to. So we are encouraging people to unplug and different, we've been to a lot of conferences in the industry and talked to a lot of different hospitality business owners. And this is like the quintessential argument that we all spend disagreeing at our little trade shows and so forth is, do you force your guests not to have, access to the internet, or do you allow it or encourage it? So our approach is we are discouraging it, but we are not preventing it. So for instance, we'll have a safe at the Welcome Center where we'll say, would you like to check your devices while you're here? We encourage that. We'll keep them safe for you. And, it's kind of like an added layer of encouragement. But at the same time, they're not required to do that. And of course, Mount Abram right behind me has a huge tower on it. We have incredible reception here. So it's very easy to have access to the internet if you want it. We're just discouraging it. That's a great question.
Fair enough. It's a good question. Let's go to Mike.
Yeah, I just checked out the questionnaire that you sent, and I love it. I think it's really cool. But I'm curious, and I'm sorry if you said this. So if I put in all the wrong answers to that and say I want luxury and I want to be pampered and I don't like to cook, are you going to dissuade me from coming, or are you going to encourage me to open up to thinking about a different experience?
I love that question.
So you're going to encourage people to not come if they don't.
We're going to discourage you from coming, or absolutely. So yes. So really, there's. The good news is that we believe that there's data to support that there is a large clientele out there that is underserved, that wants this type of experience. That's a little more do-it-yourself than your typical glamping experience. A lot of the glamping, like wilderness lodges out west, they're really headed in the direction of more and more pampering and more luxury. And you'll be in a safari tent, and there's a butler who comes to you. It's and there's chandeliers. It's wild what's going on out there, and what people will pay to be pampered. But we're putting our bets on the fact that the type of people we will service are people who are just looking for something a little more, that requires kind of ownership in the experience and requires you to be a little uncomfortable and requires you to push outside of your boundaries. And so if you aren't that kind of person, we just don't think you're going to have a good time here. And so yeah, indeed, we would discourage you. So like, for instance, at the end of that quiz, if you get there's basically just a little message that you get this, and it shows you how many points you got, right? 0 to 90 or something. And if you're between a certain range, like 0 to 50, we're going to say you're unlikely to have a successful experience here. And we don't suggest that, a tactful way to say we don't suggest that this is maybe the best fit for you. And then if you're kind of in the middle, we say, you might have a good time here, but please be sure to review all the little tabs on our website and make sure you fully understand the experience. Make sure you understand that you will be cooking yourself, that it's not a chef that's going to prepare it for you. We're giving you all, our big thing is giving you the tools, empowering you with the tools to have a successful experience. but that you are the one doing it. Because if you don't participate in some active way, for us, what we found is that we feel like in vacations where we've been really super pampered, we just feel empty kind of at the end of the day, where you're like, wow, I feel like I should have done something more. I haven't earned this dinner, but if you're like out there and you're participating and you're active, you feel a lot more, and I think you feel better about the whole experience, and it opens your brain up to new pathways and new ways of thinking when you're challenged a little like that. So that's the kind of person we want to end up here. And yeah, we kind of suggest that, depending on what your score range is, that you either, yep, you're a great fit, you're likely to have a great time here. Maybe, make sure you know what you're getting yourself into. Don't show up from New York and with a pair of stilettos on and think that this is going to be a good fit for you, because it probably isn't. And then if it's just not for you, that's fine. There are plenty of places that are, and I can give a list of them, but that's how we're approaching it.
Love it. Any other questions out there? Emily, go ahead, Emily.
Well, I first want to say I've really enjoyed hearing all that you're doing. And I want to acknowledge publicly that you're walking your talk, because you've already donated to the Buck Sledge campaign. So thank you. I have two questions. So one is, I'm trying to picture these tree houses and whether they're winterized, or is it mainly the cabins that are winterized? And I wanted to understand a little bit more about a loan, and I didn't know what you can share about. I mean, it sounds like a huge loan that you're gonna have to pay back at some point, but I just want to understand a little bit more about that too.
Sure. Yep. So winterization. So we do plan to be open year round, with the exception of mud season, basically about 2 months around March and April. The roads are gravel, and it would just destroy the roads, essentially having people up here. Plus it kind of coincides with the muddy season, the less beautiful season, the black fly season. So those 2 months we won't be open, and then we're likely to close during hunting season as well in November. But other than that, year round. And so both the cabins and the tree houses will be winterized. We're partnering with a handcrafted mass timber company that's actually out of British Columbia, and making these passive houses, passive house standards. So that's just an energy design standard where they're very energy efficient and they're very warm. And the largeness of the timber creates a thermal mass that increases your R value and just keeps them very cozy. So the tree houses are a little, it's interesting you pick up on the different, there is actually a difference in the construction between the tree houses and the cabins. The cabins will be really classic, handcrafted, full scribe log construction. That's a little too heavy for the tree houses. So it'll be kind of a hybrid there with some framed construction as well, but they will be insulated and fully equipped, both of those. And then in regards to your question about the loan, yeah, it's been quite a process. I mean, we started this hoping, not ever having done anything like this before. My husband's a general contractor. I was an organic farmer. We've both taken out small business loans, in the order of less than $50,000 to do different things for our businesses, but never developed anything from scratch this large. So it's been a huge learning process for us. But we started out thinking that we would be able to equity fund it and essentially sell the idea, sell shares in the company, and then use that equity to fund its construction. And what we learned over the course of about a year of courting dozens of different potential investors that we found through networking and through attending different industry conferences and things, is that everybody loves our idea. Everybody said, oh, this is fantastic. I can't wait to visit it myself. But call me once you have a few units up and running. Like, we want to expand it. When you're ready to do 30 units, like, call us for that $4 million. But for right now, on your own nickel, go show us that it works. And then, we'll take it from there. So it became clear to us, what we're going, as much as we don't want to have to debt fund this, we're going to have to debt fund what we're calling a proof of concept phase. So this is, 1.7, it sounds like a lot. It is a lot of money. But in the scheme of like the whole sanctuary that we plan is actually a $9 million endeavor. So 1.7 is a smaller chunk of that. It's a 5-unit phase. We determined that 5 units was about the smallest amount of units we could do and still make money, make it operate in the black. And because there is certainly an economy of scale you get to it at some point. But that's kind of like, for our model, that's the sweet spot where we can make it work. So we said, all right, we'll do these 5 units and the amenities and just debt finance it. And even that has been incredibly challenging because conventional lenders, banks, they don't run towards ventures that they call speculative. And I've heard that term more than I care to mention today to describe us. But of course, we don't consider it speculative. We consider it a sure thing. And we have all kinds of data and feasibility studies that we've had done to try and support that. And so, but at the end of the day, the great news is that we have found this program. So I'm a service veteran and I learned about it through a veterans resource group, but it's a type of business loan called an SBA 504, and you don't have to be a veteran to get it. But as a veteran, you get better rates and things like that. But it's basically a partnership between a certified development company, which is a special kind of lender that's backed by the SBA, and a conventional lender. So the conventional lender gets incredibly reassured about their ability to, your ability to pay the loan back, because the SBA is backing about half of it, saying if she defaults, we'll pay you back up to half. So they really only need us to then collateralize about half of it, which is a lot easier to do than a full $1.7 million thing. So you're collateralizing it with the land, in part, with the units themselves once they're built. So there's a lot on the line. I mean, you need to make it work. One thing we did do, and then I'll zip it, but one thing we did do is we carved a small parcel, a 6-acre parcel out around our cabin, our owner's cabin, so that if this thing tanks, at least we're not living in a cardboard box. So our cabin's not on the line. At least we have a place to live, but we're putting everything else on the line. And it's been a tough process, but we finally see the end in sight, where we've got some lending partners lined up and a mechanism. So it's great.
Very smart, very strategic. Someday we'll have you give a workshop on creative financing of interesting projects. Maybe one last question? It's getting close to time and I want to be respectful of time, but anything else out there? Mike?
Sorry, I always have questions. Me and Marcel and Emily, I think, are the questioners here. But Maggie, I wanted to come back to you about visitation. I think this kind of plays between these two projects a little bit. I'm curious if you can kind of speak to how many of your visitors are people who are coming to go to the museum versus how many are people who are coming to the area and looking to fill out that experience. And again, thinking about people who are going to visit, Colburn Spoon, and and how I'm just curious your experience to date, how much the museum is the destination for folks versus it's another thing for people to do while they're in the area.
That's a great question. I think at this point, we are starting to get more towards, well, I heard about the museum, so I'm here. I think I'm going to say probably 35% are I'm here for you. Whereas a large portion are also, well, I'm here and I Googled it and you came up, so I'd say that's probably another 30 to 40%. The rest are, I'm staying here and, so-and-so said to come here. So it's sort of an equal amount between, I had no idea you were here, I was walking by or driving by. I'm here for you because I saw XYZ Chronicle or an article, Wall Street Journal, Boston Globe. And then it's, well, my friend said, come see me. So it's sort of an equal. And then of course there's the school groups, the bus tours who are, they're destined for here.
Yeah. It's just interesting to think about how all these pieces again fit together to create that destination experience.
That's a good question. Thanks for asking that. With that, we've reached our time limit and I see we're starting to lose some folks, so I'll set you free, but thanks so much for joining us We will definitely find a place to post this, keep you posted through our newsletters, and now Isabella is taking on a little bit more. If you haven't before, go to mahoosikway.com to take the pledge to embrace our place. I'll remind you that if you need posters or logos for your website or anything like that, I'd be happy to print them for you, or you can even find spots on the website to print them yourself. So yeah, anyway, great to see you here in this new year. We'll keep this up, and I just want to say Happy New Year, stay healthy, and enjoy this wonderful little town here in the middle of winter. Sometimes it thrives the most. All right,
Hey, guys.
fun.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Jesse.